Okay, here's our video for week 2. We're going to be actually getting into some Autocad and going from the textbook. And what I'd like you to do, first of all, is take a look at page 119. It's in chapter 3. We're going to start talking about coordinates and how they work within Autocad. The figure that you see there is some coordinates, and if we look, you see this little compass down here at the bottom. It says 0, 0. This is 0, 0 in our working plane. If we look back at Autocad, we'd be able to see that on our screen. Actually, I'll show it to you in a minute. But 0, 0 is just like a number line. It has XY coordinates of 0, 0. We have absolute coordinates and we have relative coordinates. Now, most of the time when I'm doing my CAD drafting, I'm working with relative coordinates. In other words, every time I place a point on the screen, it resets 0, 0 to that point so that I can execute XY coordinates from that point relatively easily without having to calculate where I am at that point from 0, 0 in absolute coordinates down here and then adding what I want to on top of it. There are some times when it's important, but there are other times when it's not really necessary. So most of the time you're going to be working in relative coordinates. So A is absolute, R is relative, and C is just a coordinate symbol. So starting at 0, 0, if I were to do an absolute coordinate from here to point 2, it would be 2.5 in the X coordinate, comma, 5 in the Y coordinate. And in this case, because we're starting from 0, 0, the absolute coordinate and the relative coordinate would be the same. Now, if I'm coming from this point at 2.5, comma 5 and going to point 3, my absolute coordinate would be 4, which is 4 over from 0, 0 to 2.5 because it's coming from the 0, 0 coordinate to find this location. If I'm starting at this point with a relative coordinate, I'm going over 1.5 and negative 2.5 to find this point. So sometimes if you're here and it says 0, 0, I know I want to get over here and down. So these are our coordinates that we're going to be working in. Now if we take a look at page 2 here, and you can find this image on page 100 back in chapter 2. And this is the first drawing exercise that we're going to do, and we'll make an attempt to do some dimensioning depending on how much time it takes us to kind of put this thing together. So if you can kind of have your page open in that textbook, we're going to draw this in whatever units we determine are good, probably just in inches. So we'll start from the very beginning and go through the setup. If you need to stop this video anytime and go practice, it might be a good idea to just kind of watch this through the first time and then start doing it. If you have an issue, you can kind of scan ahead until you find that part and review it again. But we'll make it relatively easy. I'm going to go over some offsets. I'm going to go through some keystroke commands that will help you put things in place, and hopefully it'll be helpful to you. So we'll start with this first exercise. I'm going to just minimize this. Here's our Autocad screen that everybody should see when they pull up on the on the computer. And we're going to start a new file up here in the left-hand corner. You'll see right next to the big A it says New. So we're just going to create a new one, or you can type in QNew. And what this is going to do is ask us what we want to use for a template. Again, anytime you see ISO, that's metric. So what we want to use for a template is acad.dwt, which is an imperial drawing template. So we'll say, okay, that's what I want to open it with. And it's going to open it as just drawing 1. So to get all our files in the right order, what we'll do is do a file, save as, and I'm going to come back up here. It's going to go to my desktop, and I'm going to right click and create a new folder. So I just right click anywhere on the screen here and say new folder. We're going to call it, I'm going to call this one CIE 101. I've already got an A, so because that was from last year, so I'm just going to call it A 2015. You can use your name, you can call it anything you want, but this is where you're going to keep all of your files for your AutoCAD stuff. I'll double click here. I'm going to right click and create a new folder in this one, and we're going to call it Assignments, because we'll have some other folders in here. And we'll just call this one, call it P100 for page 100 in the textbook. Maybe T100 textbook. And I'm going to put my initials at the end, or you can put your name, whatever you want, so it identifies it as your drawing. And we'll just say save. You'll notice now at the top it has reassigned this drawing to P100 textbook CJ. Excuse me. So now let's get rid of that old new tab. We're going to go here and in this big A, attributes, drop it down and go right here where it says options. We'll actually go over first to drawing utilities. And when you click on drawing utilities, you're going to see this menu come up, and we want to look at our units so we can determine what units. And in this case, we're working in decimal. The precision is to 4 decimal places. If I look at my drawing back there, I know that there's nothing more than 1 decimal place, so we can actually bring that down to just 1 decimal place in this case. Anything else is probably good. We've got degrees to 0. That's probably fine for now, and we'll just say OK. So we're working in decimal. It's going to be in inches, and that's probably fine. Now the next thing we're going to do is check our layers. Right now, if you drop, this is our layer tool. You can see it's layers on the tab. If I drop this down, you see we only have 1 layer, just the default layer. So let's create some new layers. So if you come over here to layer properties and just left click once on this, takes it a second, you'll see there's our 1 layer. The green check mark indicates it's the active layer. It's on. It's not frozen. It's not locked. It has a color of white. It's a continuous line style, and the line weight is 0. So that's good. If we just right click with our mouse here, we can say new layer. And let's name this layer. I'm just going to name it P100 just because I can. That's page 100. And I want the color of this to be yellow, so it'll show up good on my screen for you. I want my line style to be continuous. That's fine. We haven't added any line styles. Everything we do will be continuous. The line weight will be 0 for now. The color will be 2. So that's all fine. Now let's right click and create another layer. And this one's going to be called dim for dimensions. And this color is going to be the light blue, index color 4. And the reason we use colors here is because we're going to actually create a pen table so that these primary colors will actually end up plotting out as dark monochrome line weights, but we don't need to look at them that way on the screen. So excuse me, I had to cover my microphone because I just sneezed, sorry. And we'll just say OK. So, I mean, we can overwrite the colors at these output, but this just makes it simpler for us. So we've created a level P100 in yellow and dimensions in cyan. We'll close this out, and now when we drop this down, you'll see that we have a dimension layer and we have a P100 layer. We're going to start with P100. I didn't mean to hit the color, I just wanted it to be active. There we go. So now P100 is the layer. You see that it's going to draw in the color that we wanted. Now I'm going to change my line weight just a little bit, just so you can see it better on the screen. So if I'm drawing a line, it'll show up a little thicker, I think. Let me see if I don't want to go too thick. And make sure my line weights are showing here. I'll figure it out later, because there's a button somewhere. Let me just type never afraid to use the help. Status bar. That's what I thought I turned. You know, that's the tool, I just can't see it, so let's see if there's a... It's my snap modes. We'll look at that in a minute, but and you'll notice also I can turn on and off that grid mode, so I don't need to see the grid. Sometimes it's easier if you like the grid on, that's fine, but it really is something that I don't necessarily... I know the book has a whole chapter on the line weights, so that upsets me to no end. Click the Home tab, Properties panel. Drop it down. Oops. You can see that. It's just my recording. I know I hit that right. Properties. Find. Oops. Find it. Move the window. Probably looking right at it. In the Home tab, that's where I'm at. Go to Properties panel. Let's match. This is it. It says I just need to click it. I will figure that out, and I will let you know in the next video. I'm not going to waste your time looking at it here, so we'll figure it out anyway. So I'll just use the standard line weight. I'll bring this back up to... You can always say it by layer, and that way if I change the line weight on the layer, it'll show up. I just wanted it to be able to show up on the screen, so it's a little easier to read, but the yellow makes it easy anyway. So we're going to start out, and I'm just going to use, now we have our line tool, we have our polyline. Of course, the difference between this, think of line segment and line string. So we're going to draw this in line segments just because it's easier to manipulate after the fact. If you look at your drawing, going back to we've got a 8.5 inch long item plate, and it's 5.5 inches high. So we're going to start this by just drawing a rectangular shape. Minimize that again. We'll start with a line tool. So we've selected our line tool. It says specify your first point. Well, let's just make our first point 0, 0. So just type in 0. You don't have to move your mouse. Hit your comma and 0 and hit enter. You'll notice now it puts my cursor at 0, 0. Now we're going to type in our next command. We can just move our mouse. You'll notice it goes into polar mode automatically here. So we could type in a distance here. You'll notice it kind of locks itself at that 0 for you, or it should. And we're going to type in a distance of 8.5. Don't need to mess with the mouse or move your cursor in there. Just type in 8.5. Hit enter, because it's already at 0 degrees. And there's 8.5 locked in here. So we'll zoom in with our wheel, and you can hold your wheel in to kind of push it without even getting out of the command. We know our height here is 5.5, and it's at 90 degrees because it kind of locks there anyway. Just hit enter. Now we're going to move it back in this direction. Now if you want to be lazy like I am, you can zoom in on this, and this is where we'll get into some snaps. So I'll finish this and then we'll talk about snaps. If you move your mouse down, you see how it turns a little green down here? It's saying, oh, there's a point right there on the drawing. You know, if I move my mouse up, it kind of locks into that position. See how that dotted line shows up there? And I can pull it back up, and when it reaches that, you'll see those two green lines. It says, hey, you're parallel to that other line and you're exactly the same length. I can just left click, so I don't even have to key in any numbers here. When we come back to the original point, we can see how it locks in, gives you that little green button, and just left click. So if you're not seeing that green button, we're going to take a look. Now, your function 3 key will turn snaps on and off, and if we come over here, we can see that these are our snap modes. I can turn it off and on here. When it's blue, it's on. When it's not, it's off. I don't know what some of that is. These are just axis. You can change your axis. Right now I'm at 90, 180, 270, 360. You can actually put it in 45s or other types of angles if you wanted to, but right now we're here. That's getting away from the point. But anyway, if I click this, we have different object snap settings. I can pull this up as a menu. Right now we can snap to an endpoint, a midpoint, a center, an intersection, an extension. We can snap perpendicular, and we can snap tangent. So and you'll notice each of these has a different symbol. So we'll say, okay, if I'm back on my line tool, and there's my end symbol. Now if I wanted to find the midpoint of this line, see how it gives me the triangle? It'll find the midpoint. Can find the midpoint on any of these lines. If I was drawing a line straight down, you don't have to do this, but just so you can see how it works. When I come down to this point, it actually pulls up the triangle. But let's say I was over here and I wanted to snap a line from this point. Oops, didn't want it to snap. That's sometimes the problem with snapping. So I'm going to hit F3. So it takes this, whoops, my laptop, I have to hit function F3. So I'm just going to start up here. Whoops, go to my line tool. And if I come down, hit function F3 again to turn my snaps back on. Not function F2. Function F3. Now my snaps are on. You'll notice as I come down here, it tells me when I'm parallel. See how it gives me that little, also the intersection, but it also shows me that it's parallel right here. So by just snapping to an area, the next object you get to will give you that ability. Now, if you look back at your drawing again, you'll notice that it has a radius up here of 1. So from this center point to here is 1. We need to curve that corner off here and trim the corner off, or fillet the corner on the other side. Let's minimize this. So let's go to fillet, and you can see there's a number of, you can fillet, you can chamfer, or you can blend curves. We're just going to use our fillet tool, and we want to, it says select your first object, which is this one, select your second object, and I'm just going to put in my radius of 1. Oops. Messed up something there. Try it again. Fillet. We want radius. So, radius is 1. Select first object. Select second object. There we go. So I'll do this a little smoother on the next one. So we have a 1/2 inch radius. So I'm going to type in, let me just hit F. There's F is fillet. You can see it gives me my, I don't even need to go up to the top. Fillet. And down at the bottom of my screen it says fillet, select first object or tell it what you want it to do. And I just want a radius, so I'm just going to hit R, hit enter. It says specify fillet radius. I'm going to put 0.5, hit enter. And then it says select your first object line, bing, select your second object line. And it gives you a little hint as to what it's going to do, and then trim it off. Okay? So if we look back at our image, you can see we've got the outside shape of our object in place. Very easy. Let's go back to our Autocad. Now, we have to place a circle. And that circle from 0, 0 is over 3 and up 2. Alright, how are we going to do that? Let's go to our circle tool. With your snap mode on, I want you to watch what happens when my cursor goes to this point. See how it snaps there? And when I stop, it just gives me an end point and move my cursor to the left. See how it kind of locks into that point? And I can key in a distance of, what do we need? 3, comma, and 2. Hit enter. There's the point. It's called an offset. And we're going to just key in the radius now. It's a 2 diameter, so we're going to key in 1 for the radius. There it is. Now, I know that seems a little confusing and it's a little intuitive. And, you know, some people will have a habit of drawing lines to mark where this needs to go. But I'm going to delete this and do it again, just because I know this is a function that is very powerful in the software. So again, circle tool, or actually I can hit escape. If I just want to hit C, here's my circle. So I'm going to move my mouse here, let it settle until it just shows that endpoint, and then start moving it to the left, or excuse me, to the right. I'm going to key in 3, and you hit comma, will move you to the next axis, which is our y-axis, and we're going to hit 2. Hit enter. There's my point. Let's bring it up here, and you're going to key in 1 for the radius. Enter. Okay? We've got another one up on the top that is an offset of 1.5 and 1.5, and it has a 1 inch diameter. So again, circle tool, C, enter, get my point. We're going to go 1.5, comma, negative 1.5, enter. Whoa, that didn't work. What did I do? Let me see. Circle. Oh, it's coming up 0, 0. My bad. I think. It finds the point there. So I don't want to do that. 1.5, comma, negative 1.5, enter. It's pulling it off the bottom. I think maybe I'm going to try something. I'm going to hit my pound sign. (1.5), comma, negative 1.5. Still is going down the bottom. That is weird. Alright, let's try one more time here. I can move it separately, but I want to be able to do this. Bear with me. It says 5.1. I just want to go over 1.5. You work so well on the bottom. Why are you being such a pill? And it goes 1.5, 1.5 from the bottom, so it's an absolute thing. And I know the pound sign will change that. Let's see. Absolute should work with the pound sign. I mean, we can come down here to the bottom and I can go over 1.5 comma and then go to 5.5 minus 1.5 would be 4, and it puts me in the right spot, but I just don't understand why I can't do it from the top, so I'm going to have to figure that out anyway. You can go from the bottom, just type in 1.5 from that 0, 0. I got to figure how to get it to go from relative to, because it does it from the lines, it's just the offsets. So being able to offset something with that, just that intuitive mode is much easier. We know this has a 1-inch diameter, so we're going to put in 0.5 for the radius. And there it is. So I apologize for being clumsy with that, but I'll figure it out. We'll have some better instructions on offsets, but right now we can do it from 0, 0 to offset these objects where they need to go. Let's talk about dimensioning for a second, and we're going to change to our dimensioning level. You'll notice, again, I didn't mean to touch the color, but it just slicked out here. There we go. So now we're in this blue color in dimensions. Now we're going to put some dimensions on here, which are pretty easy to work with. But we need to kind of create those first. So let's look at our annotation. There's a little drop down here. And we're going to go to dimensions. If I click this little dimension icon on the side, we can do a dimension style. You'll also notice it has a command called dim style. And what we'll do here is create a new dimension. Let's just create a new one. And we're going to call this one, we'll call it mechanical, because it's in inches and it's kind of a plate, so we'll just call it mechanical. And we want our arrowheads. We can change how we like our arrowheads to look, but we'll use this close filled, which is my favorite. Arrow size is 0.18. Let's see, this is in inches at full scale, so if we want them, 0.18 should be good. Center mark, yes, and I want my center mark to be 1 inch. Okay. Break size is good. We'll look at our lines. We want those to be by layer. So you'll see as I change it to by layer, it gives me a little preview here. Our text, we want, let's see what we got for text. I like Lucinda Sands Unicode. Seems to have everything we're looking for, and it's kind of stylized. Regular font. My size, paper text height, will be 0.125. I don't know that we need annotative. We'll just say 0.125. Everything else looks good. And say apply. Close. It's all set. We want the text color to be by layer, no fill color, because that would just block it out. Text height 0.125, centered. We always want the text to be horizontal alignment, and it's mechanical. You can make it so it aligns with the dimension line, or you can use an ISO standard. In this case, it looks pretty good. Our primary units, our suffix will be the inch mark. I can put that in there. I think I need two. So decimals, we only need one decimal place. There we go. Inch mark for suffix. We don't need a scale factor. Decimal degrees are there. Do we want to suppress it? No. I want to see that 0 on it. So we'll just, and these can be, you can also do alternate units if we wanted to show dual dimensioning. So now we can just say, okay, that's how I want to dimension this. Let's see how it looks. Hit close. Now you can see with our linear dimensioning, if I click on this, and I want to go from this point clear over to this point, even though it's at an angle, because it's linear dimensioning, it's going to pull it up in this direction. So we can take a look at this. I'm just going to pull this up a little further because it'll fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And I probably think my text is just a little bit too small. It would probably look good on the paper, but let's see what happens if we try to make it a little bit bigger. So we can come here, we'll look at this mechanical, and we want to modify it. So let's look at our text. Instead of text height by, I want standard text, and I want the text height. .2. And close. You'll notice my text height now is twice as big as it was before. Rather than 0.1, it's 0.2. So now we can continue with our dimensioning. I go from this point to this point. I'm doing my outside dimensions first, 5.5. Try to make them about the same distance out. You can specify, but really it's more about just trying to make them look as close as possible. We have a dimension from, if you hit enter, you can just repeat your last command. Another cute little tool. See how it finds that center point? We can pull this out now a little closer, and we're going to do this, hit enter, repeats that dimension again, go to that center point. We're going to pull this one up a little closer to that overall line. We're going to do the same thing now. Oh, okay, yep. We'll finish some others, but now we've got a dimension that we want a diameter. Click diameter. We're going to click here, and we can pull this out, so it's going to be a 1-inch diameter. I'm going to keep mine inside. You'll notice it put the center mark on here. If I do the same thing to this one, I'll just hit enter, left click, and that's a 2 radius. Now, excuse me, diameter. This is a little small, so I probably want to change that in my dimension properties for this particular drawing. So we can come over here to our annotation, look at our mechanical, hit modify, and we go to symbols and arrows, center mark. I want to make that 1.2 and hit OK and close. Now you can see my center marks extend out beyond the edge of the circle. We have a radius dimension. If I click up here, I want to go to a radius, and I want to find out the radius of this arc, this fillet. Left click, there's my center mark, and you can see I can kind of pull that radius down in here inside the object, or I can keep it outside. You don't like to have your dimensions crossing if you can help it, so I can just pull this down to the inside, place it right there. Same thing down here. I could, whoops, gotta hit enter again to remember. There's my arc, and on this one I can put the center mark, and I can just pull it outside the dimension. because I've already got the overall height listed on the other side of the drawing. We've got a couple more dimensions here. We've got the distance, so we're going to go to our linear dimension again. We're going to click here to the center point, pull it down, it's 3, and then we're going to hit enter, and we're going to go from this point to the center point, pull it out. You can actually line it up with the other one by just moving your mouse up and letting it attach to this. It gives you that end point. So everything lines up. So if we look back at our drawing file, we can see that we've got all of the dimensions that they have, only ours look a little better. Some of the gaps in these, I don't know if we have many adjustments we can make on our mechanical for the center mark. Let's just take a look and see if we can modify that a little bit more. It's a mark, a line. I guess you could give it a specific line. Oh, there it is. Whoops. Oh. I don't know why that doesn't. I thought I saw it. Brake size 0.125. Well, I'm not really sure. I should be able to get a little gap, like it shows a little piece in there, but I'll take a look at another dimension style. We'll figure it out, but it's not bad for now. Just being a little picky. So, just give you a little heads up now. Let's this is 8.5 inches long and it's 5.5 inches high, so it should fit on a sheet of paper, except my dimensions may have pushed me out a little ways. Let's look down here at their bottom tab. You can see you got a layout 1 and a layout 2. We just take a look at layout 1, and there's our object right there. What we see here is a viewport. If I delete that, it disappears. So we can put in a new viewport. If you just go to insert, it should be right here. Viewports, why is it grayed out? Now I want to put one in. Viewports. Let's go down here. Single viewport. Okay. I don't know why. Usually there's a tool up there. So I'm just going to move this all the way to the outside. So as soon as I do that, you'll see that it zooms everything in to that. And what we're looking at is a piece of paper here. Okay. If I look down at the bottom where it says paper or model, if I click model, over here it gives me my scale. So I can say, what's it look like at 1 to 1? Well, if I go 1 to 1, it kind of goes outside the paper. So if I make it 1 to 2, this would be half scale. And what we'd do is note on our title block that this is half scale. So you can do that. Now, when we want to print this out, let me give you a little primer here. You can play around with this if you want and print it out. I'm not sure. We'll probably do a title block to go along with this as our first assignment once you get it done. But if you right click down here in your layout tab, down here at the bottom left, and say Page Setup Manager, I'm going to create a new one. We're going to call it Mechanical, M-E-C-H. Hit OK. And this comes up and says, how do you want to print this out? Well, I'm just going to print it out as an Adobe PDF, which is right here. We may do some DW. There's all kinds of different ways in AutoCAD, DWFs or PDF3. But we'll try Adobe PDF to start with. You may or may not have that. You can experiment with it. And if I hit preview, this is what it's going to look like if it prints out in color. So I don't want that. But if I come over here and say I want a pen table, so I'm going to create a new one. This is a plot style table and I want to start from scratch. Okay? And I'm going to call it my pen table 1. Finish. Okay? Now I'm going to come over here to this little toolbox on the right side. I'm going to say anytime you see the color yellow, I want you to print out in black. And I want my line weight to be 0.7 millimeters. Think of this as the pencil sizes. So 0.7 is a pretty thick lead. Okay? And anytime you see the color 4, I want you to print out in black. And I want the line weight to be 0. Or use object line weight. Save and close. Now watch what happens if I want to preview this. And let's zoom in on it. You can see our line weights, how much different they are by just using colors to emulate line weights. So you don't need to turn this one in, but hang on to it, save it. We'll use it when we get ready to put our title blocks together during our labs in class the week after next. So you get all this week. I'll probably put another video up later this week so that I can go through some of the issues I stumbled over here. So I'll be working on that and figure out why. I'd like to see these hatches have a little gap in the edge of them, and it could be an offset, but I'm not seeing that gap. So that's it. You could print this out if you wanted to, but I'm just going to close this out. Now if I'm done, I'll just say okay, one more thing, close this. Now if I'm down here on the bottom, I just right click and say plot. Because it's already, I can come here and say I want to go to the Adobe PDF screen. My name for my page setup is Mechanical, and again I can hit preview. It's going to show it to me. If I want to print it, I'll just hit print, and I'm going to put this just on my put it in this folder for my assignments and say save. It saves it, and it's in the process, and there's my drawing. If I do a fit view, I'm going to rotate it, document, rotate to the counterclockwise, and now we can see it looks even better when it's printed out, because you can see our line weights are much crisper. We can see our heavy visible lines are there, so everything looks nice and professional. And once you get that into a title block, it would be good. It also shows us where our viewport is on the outside, so that can be printed or unprinted. We'll work on getting that. But here's your first drawing, precision drawing in 2D. Go ahead and get that made up, and I'll figure out that offset command and also the command for viewing the line weights on the screen, and again, I apologize. So that should keep you busy for 20 minutes or so. Thanks.